TNC, Original African Stories. Listener discretion is advised as this podcast may contain violence or strong language.
Previously on Aso Ebi.
Meaning.
What the hell, Zeno? You scared me. What are you doing here?
Why haven't you picked any of my calls?
Where, madam?
Jeddah!
She put her hands on her waist.
Hi! Madam, please. See, I take God Almighty and in Brazil, I beg you, not tell Oga, I beg. Hey, madam. I swear, I no go do am again. One light lie, madam, I beg. You see, now because I dey happy for Oga, na him make body they do me like this. Hey, madam.
Please, why have you disrupted my Faji?
Mo and I will have been married for 8 years in a few months. I need to know that we are okay. At least I know that I'm fine. I know that I'm not shooting blanks or anything. And your friend has refused to come with me to the fertility clinic. If there's a problem, we need to know now so we can find a way to work out. Right-hand man I was telling you about the other day.
I'm sorry, who?
My new vice.
Oh, it's very nice to finally meet you, Mr. Right.
Ticket?
Yup, Arik, 11. That's as if they'll be on time. You know these people.
Okay, but I still don't understand how a person will just up and decide to go away for the whole week. And this lies to Jay. What's happening?
I already told you, I'm not in a good place right now. I needed to get away from the house and from him. I need to think, I beg.
So, if you had told Jay you were running to ABJ, he would have...
Asked too many questions. Jay is understanding, but his mind works funny. Quit the interrogations, I beg. Now, remember I'm on my way to Ibadan in a cab to spend the week with my darling bro, Jay. Capish? I'm switching off this phone now. I may not contact you until I get back. I love you, okay? And please, you better have G's waiting for me on Saturday.
You worry me, I won't even lie. Feels like you're shutting me out, but you know me, oh. I will drag it out of you. Enjoy your sibling bonding. I'll deal with you when you get back. Love you, baby.
Once upon a time, when a certain house had a different landlord. Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Luth, 2002.
Move,
she said as she gathered non-existent debris beneath his feet with her broom and shoved it into the blue plastic packer. She emptied the dirt into the small plastic bag next to the fridge and proceeded to fix the crumpled sheets on the bed opposite the one he sat on.
Anita.
He reached for her arm, but only managed to grab the side of her black jalabia. She stopped and stood straight, her back to him. He held onto the side of her jalabia and dragged her towards his laps until she reluctantly dropped with her buttocks on them.
Are you even listening to me?
He asked, standing by her elusive face between his left thumb and his index finger. She looked at him and sighed.
Yes, Jay, yes, I've heard everything.
And?
She turned to him and looked away almost immediately.
And what do you want me to say? We were obviously not on the same page. I get it. This was a fling and now it's over. I get it.
She stared at his face, waiting for him to jump in and disagree with her, but his lips stayed sealed. Her eyes began to feel warm as she opened her mouth to speak. She jumped off his laps and made her way to the plain wooden door, a tad grateful for the visitor's timing.
Oh, shoot.
She exclaimed as she opened the door slightly and filled the narrow space with her head.
You don't look ready to go now. Abi, is this how you feel like going for lunch today, Ni?
The tall visitor commented before attempting to make his way past her.
I'm so sorry, Bami. I completely forgot.
She replied, stopping him from pushing the door open. She read the questions off his face and replied with one of her many expressions that he understood without fail.
Oh, he's here.
I'll call you later, okay?
She called after his disappearing back and shut the door without waiting for his reply. Desperate to avoid the eyes of the man in the room, Anita walked over to the reading table, pulled out the wooden chair, and dropped herself into the harsh welcome of bare wood.
I'm so stupid,
she exclaimed as she flipped violently through the pages of an open textbook.
Anita.
She turned sharply towards his direction, her gaze fixated on him. She folded her arms on the back of the chair and rested her head on it.
Do you know why I have never opened myself to anyone before?
She asked without looking away.
Anita, please.
Because of this stupid, avoidable hurt. I don't know, I just thought we were going somewhere. Did I ever think that maybe, just maybe, this whole us thing may have been summer fun for you? Oh yes, I did. But you were too sincere. I said sex was off the table and you understood. We were too real. So I figured when your vacation was over and you were ready to go back to London, you would say, hey babes, let's try out this long distance thing.
She was standing now and slowly making her way towards him. Her heart was pounding and her mouth felt mopped of its moisture.
But here you are saying things like where and miss and fun. Fun, Jay? You said you've had fun. And you're asking me to say something.
She was now standing adjacent to him. He reached for her hand, but she moved away.
Babe, this is hard for me too. But it'll be wicked for me to tell you what we have would survive the distance.
But it can. I have electives in a few months. I can choose to do it in a school in London. It'll be 6 weeks, but at least we'll spend time with each other. If we want to, it will survive.
He held her hand in his and pulled her to the bed. She turned her face to him and his eyes caught the pool of tears at the surface of her eyes. His heart sank. Jayola had never fared well with tears. Hard as he tried, they still made him weak. He leaned in and locked her slightly open mouth with his. He pulled back and looked at her vulnerable expression, and guilt wrapped him in a way he had never thought it would. He took her hand with one of his, and with the other, twirled the end of her thick braids. Her lips yielded to a weak smile, and without thinking, his lips parted and gave way to words he had never intended to speak.
I love you.
He watched as his words plunked into the pool in her eyes and caused a big splash. Her lips quivered as they reached for his. Her hand stroked his coarse stubble as their mouths danced harmoniously to the rhythm they produced.
Let's do it,
she managed to say after pulling away from his mouth, her hand still on the side of his face.
What?
My virginity, take it.
He tried to make sense of what she was saying, but the innocence and hurt across the face before him did little to help him rationalize his thoughts.
Okay,
He whispered as he drew back her face to his. We know what you're thinking. Oh no, they didn't. They didn't just pull off a flashback within a flashback. Well, we'll say, oh yes, we did. Inception style. How could we not tell you all that sweet gist that was stored in the past? Yeah. Now, where were we? March 2013. It was a very busy Monday at the hospital, and the blood vessels in Anita's forehead were threatening to pop. Anita rolled her eyes at the man's subtle comment about her looks and turned her attention to her patient, carefully making her way towards the door.
Just the door at the far right. You won't miss it.
The woman turned, smiled and nodded before leaving the room and shutting the brown door behind her.
Pregnant women and the bathroom.
What are you trying to do?
She tried hard to keep her voice hush. The man raised his left brow and rested his elbow on her black cushioned leather table.
Oh, you think I haven't noticed all your remarks?
She moved to the edge of her swiveled chair, waved her hands across the table, and almost spat the words in his face.
So I managed to get your attention then.
He sat back in his chair, folded his arms, and smiled to reveal a slight gap in his upper teeth. Anita narrowed her eyes at him and leaned further into her table.
My God. How shameless can you people get, eh? You are hitting on your pregnant wife's gynecologist in her presence. What the hell is going on with you people? In her presence!
She managed to maintain a firm voice at a whisper. His eyes widened and he sat up in his chair. He pulled back away from its rest.
My wife?
Oh, it's funny. I cannot believe your species. Just when I think I've seen it all, you come here acting like a...
Ooh, that was quick.
The man commented before Anita had a chance to speak. Anita smiled weakly at the woman and adjusted herself in her chair. The man glanced at Anita and laughed softly as he shook his head. She caught the smirk on his face and rolled her eyes as she finished scribbling on the case note on her desk. She found it difficult to reconcile her patient's husband's behavior with normalcy. She looked up from her desk at the couple seated opposite her and wondered what had happened to the sacred institute of marriage.
So, Mrs. Avazi, like I said, everything looks good in there. I'll just need you to come in a week from today so we can be sure that the night fever has been taken care of, okay?
Okay, thank you very much, doctor.
The woman said as she shuffled out of the chair with the help of her husband. Anita walked towards the door and gave the woman a hug before letting them out. Her smile disappeared when the man walked past her and she shook her head. She had barely shut the door when the man forced his way through and back into her office. Her hand at close reach to the door's handle. She furrowed her brows and placed her other arm on her waist.
Yes, Mr. Avazi.
She clenched her teeth. He stared at her and smiled. It was as though he knew she had found his gap teeth attractive.
Are you always this feisty? Come on.
He asked without breaking eye contact.
Mr. Avazi, is there something I can help you with?
She was starting to raise her voice now.
It's laddie.
Mr. Avazi, I am going to ask you to leave now. I believe your wife, the woman carrying your baby, is waiting for you.
He started to make his way towards the door, but then he stopped as quickly as he began.
I just want to take you somewhere we could talk. Just the two of us.
His expression, now as serious as hers. He was staring at her intensely, and she could not hide her confusion and discomfort.
I need to know who made you this cynical. If you're free for lunch today, that would be brilliant. Else, I'm going to be here every single afternoon until, you come out of your head and just listen. Listen to whatever nonsense I have to say.
He walked slowly towards her and the door, and as she left her office, he turned to her puzzled expression and smiled.
Oh, and your patient? That's my brother's wife. I'm very single.
He flashed his left hand before her face, as if an empty left fourth finger is the litmus test for one's marriage status in this 21st century Lagos, where married men are on the prowl. Still though, in the famous words of our people, that's in the pin. At about the same time in Abuja, Moini's vacation retreat seems to be in full swing.
Jay, I beg, when you're sure about your arrival, then call me. Yeah, okay. I miss you too. All right, speak to you later. Love you.
Moini ended the phone call with her brother and looked at the pile of messages waiting to be read before switching off her phone. She threw her head back and massaged her temples with her middle fingers. The ache in her head that had started the night of Jayola's birthday party had refused to leave like other visitors. When on Sunday morning she woke up crying frantically without reason, she knew the best option available to her was to go on a vacation from the place she called home. She had fiddled many times with the idea of confronting her husband about the affair she suspected he was having. But strangely, fear built inside her each time she tried to voice her thoughts. She had no qualms with being the unsatisfied one in their home, but the thought of Jayola being unhappy to the point of disrespecting her filled her with anger towards him and herself more. She downed what was left of her glass of strawberry daiquiri, picked up her phone and wallet from the poolside stool, and reluctantly dragged herself into the hotel lobby. She rubbed her sleepy eyes as she approached the elevator door and called for its descent. She tapped impatiently on the screen of her phone while ahead followed a group of chatty young women as they passed by. It seemed so far away, her feeling of youth and freedom. If idle thinking was responsible for aging, then her mind must have aged 10 times over in the last couple of years. She had never thought of marriage as a prison of sorts, but now, here she was, peering at the world from tiny holes formed by solid hollow bars that she willingly surrounded herself with. It hurt more that hard as she tried, the whip of blame always ended up breaking her skin. Not her husband's skin, just hers. The sound of the opening door drew her attention back to the elevator. She turned to enter when the face that met her eyes caused her to jump like a pin pricked the sole of her feet. She sighed, too defeated to let out the unpleasant surprise inside her.
Great. Zeno. It just had to be you, Abi.
Thanks for listening to Aso Ebi, the podcast. Brought to you by The Naked Convos. Produced by 808 Extra. Theme song, Charles Onwubuya, a.k.a. Beethoven. Narrated by Feifei. Voice actors, Jojo Amiegbe as Dr. Anita, Shea Banks as Bami, Eniola Keshiro as Moini, Jasper Tomomewo as Jayola, Charles Onwubuya as Laddie. This podcast is available everywhere you listen to podcasts on. Don't forget to subscribe and share.